Hi, my name is Dale Maley. We're going to talk about a very interesting project today to learn how to make angled teeth on a spur gear which actually mates up with a worm gear. A little history on this project. I made about 6 wooden worm gears for my hand cranked models, and I cover how to make the worm gear in another YouTube video. I'll try to put a link in the comments section for that. But on those past projects, I've always used spur gears that have straight teeth in them, and that's the gear that mates up with the actual worm gear. Now those straight teeth turn out to function okay for my models, but I always wondered if I could make a spur gear with angled teeth. Now when I thought about this in the past, I thought, I'd take the wood gear, probably set it on an angle spacer at the right angle, and then I'd drill out the root area and then use that same spacer to cut out the teeth either on a bandsaw or a scroll saw. But how do you figure out the right angle to make that spacer? Now on my project, my worm gear, the distance between the teeth is 1.047 inches. And my outside diameter, OD, is 1 13/16 inches. So I decided if I make a sketch of the teeth, then I make a right triangle, I can calculate the angle needed for the teeth. Now you'll have to excuse my kind of crude sketch here, but I show 2 teeth on the worm gear. They're in the pink, and up the top you can see that they're 1.047. That's the spacing between the teeth. Then the outside diameter, shown on the right, is 1 13/16 OD. So if we drop a line down from the top corner of that tooth down to the bottom, and then take that across, that forms an angle up at the top. We're going to call that theta, that angle. Now the bottom part of that angle is 1/2 of the teeth distance, or 1/2 of 1.047. So that means that the tangent of the angle is half times the distance between the teeth divided by the OD. That works out to be an angle that has a tangent of 0.2888276. Use a calculator or Excel spreadsheet or Google. You can find out that such an angle is at 16.11 degrees. So it turns out the math isn't that hard for this. To calculate that angle, you only really need 2 different inputs. The first input is the distance between the worm gear teeth in inches. Then what's the outside diameter of that worm gear in inches? And then the formula then to find the tangent of that angle is half times the distance between the teeth divided by the outside diameter. Once you have that number, you can use a calculator, spreadsheet, or Google it and find out what angle has that tangent value. So the next step is to print out the outline of the gear on paper. I use a free program called geardxf.exe. You can get it off the internet to generate the gear outline. Now the inputs to that are, I want 20 teeth, a 14.5 degree pressure angle, a 4-inch pitch diameter, and a 3/4 inch bore for the shaft. So that creates a DXF file from that free program. You import that into SketchUp, and then you scale it to the proper size using the 3/4 inch shaft bore. Then I also added in the outline where to drill some 3/8 inch holes for the root of each tooth. So once you have the paper pattern, you glue that onto the gear blank using white Elmer's glue. Then when you're all done sawing and drilling and the gear's essentially done and you have some leftover paper, you can rub that paper off using a wet rag, then let the gear blank dry. You can also see all my circles in here on this gear. It works out that a 3/8 drill bit's about right to drill the root area of the teeth. Next, I made the 16-degree spacer from a scrap piece of 2x4. You can see it right there. I have a Craftsman screwdriver in there just to give you a scale. It's not that big, but it's big enough for this gear. Now here's a photograph where I'm using that 16-degree spacer under the gear blank, and I have it on the drill press here, and you can see I'm ready to drill. However, what I did was lay the board flat first and then just start drill each of the holes and then tip it up at an angle. And why do you do that? Well, a Forstner bit will slide down there if you don't have kind of a starting hole. And then I put a pencil mark on the outside to tell me which way I needed to angle the holes. After I got all the holes drilled on the drill press, I took that same spacer and the gear blank over to my Sears bandsaw. Then I used it to saw out the teeth, as you can see here. As you can see in this photo, with my bandsaw sawed out the teeth, it did leave some burn marks on the sides of the teeth. So I used my Dremel to remove those burn marks. I also used a sanding attachment on the Dremel to smooth those transition areas on the teeth and also down into the root area. Then I took it over the drill press and I took a 3/8 dowel that I sawed a hole in it, or sawed a slit in it, and I slid in a piece of 220 grit sandpaper. Then I could sand each of the teeth. And here's a photograph showing the gear with the angled teeth pretty much done. About the only step left here is to take a wet rag and wet that leftover paper and rub it off the gear and then let it dry. Now I do plan on using this gear and its mating worm gear on a future model that I build, but for right now I just wanted a quick and dirty way to try it out. So in SketchUp I designed this little box that will hold the worm gear and the new gear, and I designed it such that you can move the blue gear in and out easily to get it set just right, and then fix the block below with screws, and then it should run fine. Now here's a photo of my finished text box that I made up to test it, and we're all ready to test it, and next we're going to get to see the model in action, the fun part. So in summary, this video explains how to design and make a spur gear with angled teeth to mate up with a worm gear. Hopefully this video will help you on your projects, and I hope you enjoyed the video. So please subscribe. Thank you.